There is a strange thing that happens when a conversation matters most. We become least like ourselves. We rehearse the perfect sentence in our head. Then the real conversation starts, and our heart rate rises. We either become too forceful, say something we regret, or go quiet and hope the problem disappears. Hi, I'm Alex. Welcome to One Book in 10 Minutes. Today I want to share a book that made me rethink what actually goes wrong when good people try to talk about difficult things. I finished Crucial Conversations thinking about how many important problems are not really caused by a lack of intelligence. They are caused by conversations people keep avoiding. A manager delays honest feedback. A couple keeps circling the same argument. A friend says, "I am fine," when both people know that's not true. The book is written by Kerry Patterson, Joseph Grenny, McMillan, and Switzler, and its central promise is practical. You can talk about difficult things without destroying trust. What I like about this book is that it doesn't give you a bag of clever lines. It teaches you to notice what is happening inside the conversation and inside yourself. Today I want to share the ideas that stayed with me, especially the ones you can use the next time the stakes are high, opinions differ, and emotions are strong. And honestly, that explains why these moments can feel so frustrating. We know the relationship matters, but our reaction can make it look as if winning matters more. A conversation becomes crucial when three conditions appear together. The stakes are high, opinions differ, and emotions run strong. That definition is useful because it shows that a crucial conversation is not only a dramatic confrontation. It might be asking for a raise, disagreeing with a doctor, talking to a teenager about trust, telling a colleague that their behavior is hurting the team, or admitting that a relationship no longer feels healthy. The authors make an uncomfortable point. The more important the conversation, the more likely we're to handle it badly. Under pressure, our bodies prepare for danger. Blood moves away from the parts of the brain responsible for patient reasoning and toward the muscles. At exactly the moment we need our best communication skills, our biology pushes us toward fight or flight. That's why preparation matters. Before the conversation, ask what is actually at stake. What result do you want? What does the other person probably want? What are you afraid might happen? Naming those things makes the situation less foggy. The goal is not to remove emotion. The goal is to keep emotion from quietly taking control of the steering wheel. When I thought back to conversations I've mishandled, this was usually the first mistake. I went in preparing my argument instead of checking what outcome I actually wanted. Here's the first idea I would actually use before a difficult conversation. The book calls it start with heart. Before trying to control the other person's behavior, check your own motive. Ask, what do I really want for myself? What do I want for the other person? What do I want for the relationship? This sounds simple, but it changes the tone of a conversation. Suppose a colleague misses a deadline and creates extra work for you. If your hidden goal is to prove that they are irresponsible, every question will sound like an accusation. If your goal is to understand what happened, protect future deadlines, and preserve a workable relationship, you'll choose different words. The authors also warn about the fool's choice. Under stress, we often believe we have only two options: tell the brutal truth and damage the relationship, or stay polite and say nothing. But that's usually a false choice. You can be honest and respectful. You can disagree and still show that you care about the person. A useful reset is to ask, how can I be completely honest here and still protect mutual respect? That question forces your brain to search for a better path. The point is not to become soft. It's to make sure the conversation serves the result you genuinely want. This next part was especially useful to me because it gives you something concrete to watch for while the conversation is happening, not just afterward. Once the conversation begins, learn to look. Pay attention not only to the topic, but also to the conditions around the topic. Is the conversation still safe? Are both people contributing meaning, or has one person stopped speaking honestly? The book describes two common danger patterns: silence and violence. Silence includes withdrawing, avoiding, masking, or pretending to agree. Violence includes controlling, labeling, attacking, interrupting, and trying to force a conclusion. These behaviors look different, but they often come from the same source. A person no longer feels safe. This was one of the most useful ideas for me. When someone becomes defensive, we usually argue harder about the content. But the content may no longer be the real problem. The real problem is that the person believes they are being disrespected, trapped, or threatened. Watch your own signals too. Maybe your voice gets faster. Maybe you start building a case instead of listening. Maybe you become sarcastic. Those are early warnings. If you notice them, slow down. You can say, I think this is becoming more tense than I intended. Can we pause for a second? A short reset can prevent 10 minutes of damage. Once I started seeing silence and aggression as signs of lost safety, other people's reactions felt less mysterious and my own reactions became easier to catch. When safety disappears, step out of the content and repair the conversation. The authors focus on two forms of safety: mutual purpose and mutual respect. Mutual purpose means both people believe you care about a shared outcome. Mutual respect means the other person still feels valued even while you disagree. One practical tool is contrast. A contrasting statement explains what you don't mean and what you do mean. For example, I am not saying you don't care about the project. I do think we need to understand why the deadline was missed so we can prevent it next time. The first sentence removes a threatening interpretation. The second returns to the issue. An apology also helps when you have clearly violated respect. A real apology is not, I am sorry you felt offended. It acknowledges your action and its effect. Then, if your goals seem different, look for a broader shared purpose. A parent and teenager may disagree about a party, but both may care about trust and safety. Two departments may fight about budget, but both want the company to succeed. Safety doesn't mean comfort. A safe conversation can still be difficult. It means both people believe they can speak honestly without being humiliated or punished. I like this distinction because it doesn't ask us to avoid tension. It asks us to create enough trust for the real issue to stay in the room. The book then turns inward with an idea called Master My Stories. Between what happens and how we feel, we tell ourselves a story. Someone doesn't reply to a message. That's the fact. They are ignoring me because they don't respect me is a story. The story may be true, but it's still an interpretation. Under pressure, we confuse stories with facts. Then we enter the conversation as if our interpretation has already been proven. The authors suggest walking backward. Notice the feeling, identify the story creating it, and return to the observable facts. What did you actually see or hear? What assumptions did you add? They describe common stories in which we cast ourselves as innocent victims, the other person as a villain, or the situation as completely outside our control. A better question is, what am I pretending not to notice about my own role? That can be uncomfortable. Maybe you never clarified the deadline. Maybe you avoided the issue for weeks. Maybe your tone contributed to the defensiveness. Taking responsibility for your part doesn't excuse someone else's behavior. It gives you a more accurate picture, and accuracy is far more useful than righteous anger. That pause between fact and story may only last a second, but in practice it can completely change the sentence that comes out of your mouth. When it's time to share your view, the book offers the acronym STATE. Share your facts. Tell your story. Ask for the other person's path. Talk tentatively. Encourage testing. Start with the least controversial facts. We agreed on Friday, and I received the file Monday afternoon. Then explain your interpretation without presenting it as absolute truth. I am starting to worry that this deadline is not being treated as a priority. Next, invite the other person in. Can you help me understand what happened? Talking tentatively doesn't mean sounding weak. It means leaving room for correction. Say, I am beginning to think, rather than, it's obvious that. Encourage testing by making disagreements safe. If you see this differently, I want to hear it. The method can sound a little mechanical on paper. After trying it in ordinary language, though, it feels more like curiosity with a backbone, clear, direct, and still open. A good conversation can still fail if nobody knows what happens next. The final discipline is to move to action. Decide who will do what, by when, and how you'll follow up. Don't leave with a warm feeling and 3 different interpretations of the agreement. The book distinguishes between dialogue and decision-making. Not everyone who contributes to a conversation must have final authority. Sometimes one person decides after listening. Sometimes the group votes. Sometimes experts advise and a leader chooses. Confusion about the decision method creates resentment later, so make it explicit. Here is the practical version I took from the book. Before a hard conversation, clarify what you really want. During it, watch for signs that safety is breaking down. If that happens, repair mutual purpose or mutual respect. Separate observable facts from the story in your head. Share your view tentatively. Invite the other person's view, and finish with a specific agreement. Crucial conversations don't become easy because you know a framework. You'll still feel nervous. But nervous and skillful can exist together. The real measure of a relationship, a team, or even a family is not whether difficult issues appear. It's how quickly and honestly people can talk about them when they do. One final practice makes all of this more realistic. Start with a lower stakes conversation. Don't wait for the biggest conflict of your year to try every skill at once. Choose a small issue you would normally avoid. Write down the facts, the story you are telling yourself, and the result you want. Open with a clear shared purpose. Then notice whether you move towards silence or force when tension appears. Afterward, review the conversation without judging yourself. Where did safety improve? Where did it fall? What sentence would you change? Communication gets better through reflection, not through memorizing perfect phrases. The aim is not to become a person who never feels defensive. It's to notice defensiveness sooner, recover faster, and return to dialogue before the relationship pays the price. Before you go, I'd love to hear your experience. Which kind of difficult conversation is hardest for you? Giving honest feedback, handling disagreement, or saying something you've been avoiding? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this summary, subscribe to One Book in 10 Minutes. We turn the world's most valuable books into clear, practical lessons you can use in real life. One book, 10 minutes. Better you.